Okay, today I'm going to be talking about the need to fight against human trafficking. Human trafficking is often overlooked, and it is a global issue that needs to be addressed and be known and spoken for to the general public. Human trafficking in modern day America and the rest of the world is higher than it's ever been before, and it has become more prevalent in the Joliet area, where women with children have been spotting predators in places like the grocery store or the park. I personally know a woman that my family is very close to who was sex trafficked from ages 13 to 17 until she and her children ran away to escape the situation. They then became homeless, and it turns out that her trafficker was her brother, and she ended up having two children from the situation. Her story is what inspired me to give my speech on this topic because I didn't believe that things like this actually happened until I met a true survivor. After listening to my speech, I want my audience to be aware, like I was made aware, that this is a real issue and that it is something we must watch for every single day because the human trafficking industry is growing rapidly. First, I'll explain what human trafficking is. I will then mention the statistics of human trafficking in our country, and then I'll finish by discussing steps that you can take to help prevent the growth of human trafficking and ensure that nobody close to you becomes a victim. To begin, let me explain what human trafficking is. The U.S. Trafficking Victims Protection Act of 2000 defines human trafficking as the recruitment, harboring, transportation, provision, or obtaining of a person for labor or services through the use of force, fraud, coercion for the purpose of subjection to involuntary servitude. In other words, human trafficking is the trade of humans, most commonly for the purpose of forced labor, sexual slavery, or commercial sexual exploitation for the trafficker or others. Sex trafficking specifically is human trafficking for the purpose of sexual exploitation, including sexual slavery, and is most common for women and children to be targeted. Now that you have a general idea of what human trafficking is, let's talk about some of the statistics. Every hour, 34 people in America are forced into prostitution, and each year, almost 3,000 children in New York State alone, which is the country's fourth largest trafficking hub, get sucked into this version of modern-day slavery. I have two visual aids that are charts with human trafficking statistics. So this is the first one. And it states that the business of human trafficking makes about $150 billion a year in profits. $99 billion is through sexual exploitation. $34 billion is through construction, mining, manufacturing, and utilities. $9 billion is through agriculture, forestry, and fishing. $8 billion is through domestic servitude. Sexual exploitation and forced labor are the most common forms of human trafficking in the world, and 20% of that is human trafficking. 20% of the human trafficking cases involve the labor industry, and 80% of the cases involve the sex industry. Going back to the previous chart, the labor industry is like the construction, mining, manufacturing, and agriculture that it was talking about. So now that we understand the facts on human trafficking, we can move on to how you can take precaution against human trafficking. All 50 states have some kind of anti-trafficking law, according to the Polaris Project, which is an anti-human trafficking organization. New York and New Jersey have the most comprehensive laws, which means like they have the best laws out there. And part of that is because they are the bigger trafficking hubs of the country. Illinois has a new law that makes it easier for human trafficking victims to sue their perpetrators. The law is called the Human Trafficking Victims Protection Act, and it took effect January 1st, 2019. This law helps victims deal with their real-life obstacles that they face in seeking justice. And the reason that I'm including this is in the ways of prevention is because it's important to make yourself aware of the laws and the resources that you'll have if you are ever in these situations. The biggest thing that I can stress is that it's extremely important to be aware of your surroundings and to always be cautious of things like whose house you enter, whose car you ride in, the people you surround yourself with. And it's also very important that you're extra cautious and watching for predators when you're alone, or especially with children, because children are one of the biggest targets. The biggest advice that I can give you to try your best to make a difference in your community is to raise awareness and make sure that like your family, if you have any younger siblings, that they're all aware to look out for things and like give them some extra signs to look out for that lead to human trafficking. Um, to wrap things up, now that we've discussed the truth of human trafficking in modern day America, and you learned what human trafficking is, what the statistics behind it are, and how you can raise awareness to remain cautious for you and your loved ones. One thing that I want you to take away from my speech, if you don't get anything else out of it, is to please remember that this is a real modern day issue and it is prevalent in all the areas that we call home.